Welcome back to Mind Your Biz. My name is Seth, and in today's creator highlight episode, I have the special pleasure of bringing on one of the OGs in the crypto content space. If you don't know him, I think probably you should. And if you've been following my content, there's actually a pretty high likelihood that you don't have overlap with his. And this is kind of weird because this guy jumped onto the Cardano ecosystem train early on and is known for being one of the most prominent builders in that ecosystem. It's none other than the Crypto Crow himself, Jason Appleton. Crow, welcome.
What's going on, man? Nice to be here.
Hey, I really appreciate that you made time for this. It was kind of last minute. I reached out to you and was like, hey, how'd you like to be on my channel? And you were like, hey, I'm moving in like 2 days. Maybe you should do that sooner than later. So
I just wing it. I don't schedule stuff because I know that everything's chaotic. So I get all these invites for Twitter stuff now. And I'm like, I'd love to, but I can't guarantee anything. It's like, if you catch me, we're good. Let's just do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, man. Seriously, Twitter Spaces, it was already pretty like last minute. Work follows you everywhere because of smartphones and the way the technology works. But now with Twitter Spaces, dude, same thing. Like every morning, everyone's got a breakfast show, everyone's got an evening show, everyone's got a late night show, and they all want you to come and bless their spaces and be in the audience and stuff. Thank you for making time for this. Let's talk a little bit about your background, man. For members of my audience that maybe don't know you, you're one of the few people in the space who's like fully doxxed. You go by a first and a last name. You also go by a pseudonym, and you've been kind of out there really public and really, really vocal about your opinions in the crypto ecosystem for a number of years. But I'm curious to know, who was Jason Appleton before Crypto Crow? Like, who was that guy? What did he do? What was
nerd?
All right, man. Well, let's unpack that, man. What kind of a nerd? Because there are import tuner nerds, and then there are PC nerds, and then there are like
all of it.
Guys who. I'm
a PC nerd. I'm a miniature painting, tabletop gaming, video gaming nerd. I'm one of those guys that I can't stop. I can't really sit idle. So I'm always getting into just whatever sounds interesting. Like I told you, like I'm downloading the Unreal Engine right now. I want to try and learn some Unreal game dev, just because I just want to learn something new. I was right before I got into crypto, I was in the mortgage business. And then before that, I was in mixed martial arts for 6 years. So I've done, before that I was in the music business, and I've done a lot of different things just in the name of, I just like learning new industries. I like learning new things. And so a lot of people, especially people that follow my channel, they kind of know my backstory in terms of like my uncle and like this big camp out that I was invited to go to for years and years and years, and I never went, and I finally did, and it ended up being the last time I ever saw my uncle, who passed away at dinner at China. And he knew that he had this heart issue, but, he was told that, he had some extra time, and they didn't want to, the surgery was really dangerous, and they didn't want to do it until it was absolutely necessary. And then they gave him permission to go to China. Well, before then, we all, I took my stepson. I thought it'd be a cool bonding thing, and I took him to meet all my uncles. And he didn't know which were my uncles and which were the trees at this whole campsite, because my uncles are all ginormous too. And we had a great time, and we had all these talks about dividend stocks and things. And as I was getting into dividends, and I was using my Robinhood app at the time because I didn't know any better. And I'm like, no fees. I can buy all these dividend stocks and not pay, and I can trade, and I can learn the markets without having to pay a bunch of fees back and forth. So it worked out well for me. But in researching dividend stocks, I ended up on, ICOs and things like that. And that's how I got into crypto. And I started my channel really because I thought my daughters would think it was cool. And I thought, well, maybe they'll listen to dad if I'm on YouTube. Right, because that was their big thing. Everything was about YouTube. And so I thought, well, I'm learning all this stuff. Maybe I can teach them, kind of what I'm learning and what my journey is this way. And it just ended up becoming a totally different thing. And there've been a lot of ups and downs and everything since then. But yeah, ultimately, I'm just a big nerd, man. I'm a big gamer, and I like to create. I love art. I love AI art. I love all of it. I love everything. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I think there's a quote from a dude that I met at a training once. He said, I think to be endlessly interesting, then you need to be endlessly interested. And I can say from personal experience, man, I'm not just blowing smoke or whatever. I find you and your wife also together as a couple to be a very interesting and dynamic couple of people, like two people. And I think part of it is that, like you're saying, you find yourself genuinely interested and passionate about learning new things and about discovering new experiences that you can have in life. And that really shines through, man. That really shows that you are that person who's trying to become the new Renaissance man, right? The sort of new school Renaissance man. So that's awesome, man. Not a shock there at all. But let's talk about that point of no return for you when you said you were on Robinhood. You're like, all right, let's try out these dividend stocks. Take a look at what's good here. You found ICOs, for better for worse, right? Like things shifted a lot for you. What was the point of no return where you were like, damn, I really can't ever go back to the way things were?
It's about 6 months later. I was actually in the process of building a mortgage branch office. So I was hiring loan officers. I was training these loan officers. I was working with the president of the company, and I'm because I was what you call a rainmaker back then, which was, I was an independent consultant. And my job was to basically, I would go and I would train branch managers on how to increase their sales volume through the loan officers, by training their loan officers through their marketing, their relationships with agents, and all sorts of stuff. And I got a really big reputation for being what they call a rainmaker, somebody who could come to a bank and like just double their volume like quickly. And so I was at a point where I could kind of write my own check, like if you want me to consult with you for 6 months, here's what you pay me. And I would work like 4 hours a week, and I was doing pretty well. But it was still scary because it was kind of like contract to contract, right? Like I didn't know, like, are they going to renew, or am I going to get another client? And so it was like nerve wracking all the time. And then I got an offer to become like, I don't even remember what my title was. I think it might've been VP of marketing or something. I don't know, for this national lending company. And, but they wanted me to build a branch. And so I'm building this branch out. And as I'm building this branch is when I really started watching like YouTube videos. I was watching like the old Ian Bellina videos, and I even watched like Superman videos. Right. And I thought, what is this stuff? What is this all about? And I would follow a lot of like Ian Bellina's logic. And he's a cool dude, by the way. Like he brought his whole team to my house in Puerto Rico. And, and we just had drinks and talked. And I mean, he was just a cool dude. Never met Supo Man. He's in the UK, but I met Mark Moss. He brought his family to my house, and we had dinner and talked and stuff like that, and met a lot of people out there. Mark is another real one. Like I really like Mark Moss a lot. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But and I basically maxed out 3 credit cards at the time. And I built my first Ethereum mining rig, and then I would invest what I mined up, and I would take that Ethereum and I invested into ICOs, and I ultimately turned like $3,000 into $90,000 in 60 days.
Dude.
And yeah, it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And it was like, this was, like November of 2017. And I started my channel, I think it was on the 7th. So it was like right at the height where you could throw a dart at anything and you were like quadrupling, you're just making a bunch of money. And I thought, I am a genius. I am the smartest guy in the world. I don't even, it's kind of like Goodwill Hunting. You know what I mean? Where he's just like, I don't know how I do it. I just do it. I can't help that you guys can't figure this shit out. Right. Like that was where my head was at the time. And, because I had a call with like several billionaires. And, it was this group call, and one of them owns a very well-known clothing company. I've never talked about this on my channel, I don't think. And one of them reached out to me, and they're like, we were interested in talking to you about your crypto adventures and what you do in the crypto space. And I got on this call, and it was almost like a Shark Tank thing. I didn't realize it. And they had all these guys. They're like two or three other guys on the call before me. I'm like waiting for a turn to talk to these billionaires about, stuff. And I was so rough around the edges. And all these guys are like, I have an MBA, and they're all snooty, and like I'm like top shit in my class and all this other stuff. And I'm like, whatever, dude. And so they hurried these guys off. And then they're like, the guy that invited me, he's like, now this is Jason Appleton. This is the guy I really wanted you guys to talk to. And he started asking me all these questions, and he's going through all of the stuff I've done and invested in YouTube. And they're like, how are you never wrong? How do you do this? I'm like, I don't know. I just do it. And I didn't know what to tell these guys, but I'm like, listen, I'm just some dude who got into crypto, and I guess I'm getting lucky. I'm not quite sure. They thought I had a higher power, and they wanted to invest. They wanted to basically fund me to launch my own fund that they wanted to then seed. And They wanted me to use all their lawyers and this, and I was like scared. I was like, this is too big for me. Like, I don't know, thanks, but no thanks. You know what I mean? And
I mean, that's huge liability, man. People trying to throw an eight figure. I'm just guessing here, spitballing a low 8-figure fund at you, right? Like, because less than 10, 20 million.
Millions. They were looking to put a couple million and seed me to get started, and then help me bring other clients and this and that. And I mean, dude, I got an offer to manage mob money once. Like, this guy flew out from, so I don't even want to say like what part of the country, but he flew out, took my wife and I to dinner. And, and he's like, hey, I really love what you do. I've been following you for a while. He's like, I know you have a fear of flying. I'm going to get you a book on that and all this other stuff. And he did. He sent me this book, and it was called Soar. But anyway, and he was like, now, the people I represent, they have a history and like not so legitimate businesses, this and that. And he's like, but they're going more legitimate now, and they're very interested in you working with them in crypto. And I'm like, I looked at my wife. My wife looked at me. She just shook her head, like, don't even think about it. I'm like you got to tell me. And he saw it. He's like, look, I understand. If you did. And he was like, we don't want you to do anything. Just maybe a little favor here or there. I'm like, dude, that is. And my wife, Kristen, she's like, he is so by the book. This is not going to work, right? And I'm like, yeah, dude. I'm like, I have no interest, man. It's not worth my freedom to like. So yeah, dude, I've had all kinds of crazy experiences. And then sure enough, man, right after all of that, market peaks, it starts crashing. So could you imagine, had I taken up any of these people on their offers, and then the market starts dropping, and then they're coming to me like, what's going on? Dodged a couple bullets on that.
Yeah, well, man, maybe literally in the one case, right? Like,
you never know. Yeah. So man, that was the point of no return though, because my channel was blowing up. I was getting like 2,500 subscribers a day at the time, to the point where people thought I was like buying them. I didn't even know what that was at the time. And everything was just doing really well. And within 6 months, once I hit over 50,000 subs, I started getting a lot of like, hey, will you talk about our project? We'll pay you. And I'm like, oh, interesting. And so I started generating more that way. And I always disclosed everything, and I was always brutally honest. Like, people would pay me all the time to do a segment, and I would just tell everybody, like, this is a shit show. Like, stay away from this. They paid me like a Bitcoin to tell you that this was terrible. And that made people want to watch my reviews in my paid segments even more, because they wanted to know. Nobody had ever seen anybody dump on a project that they were paid to promote, right?
Right. And crypto's full of sociopaths, man. Crypto's full of like diehard narcissists who would gladly pay you, because they would tell themselves like, oh, well, he won't say that about me. My project's great.
Right.
That had to have happened for you.
But it got to the point where companies were trying to pay me a Bitcoin just to read their white paper and tell them whether or not I thought it was crap before I did a video. And I was like, no, because if I put in the time to like read your white paper and formulate an opinion on your project, it's got to be content, with Bitcoin or not. And, back then Bitcoin was like $8,000 or something. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't anywhere near what it is now. But yeah, it was just like, I just kind of turned it all into a business. And then, within 6 months I had quit the bank, and I quit doing the mortgages and all of that. And I just went full time with everything in crypto. And it just changed our lives dramatically. So yeah, that was the point of no return, but a lot happened in that 6 months, let me tell you.
Oh yeah, I believe it, and I lived through those 6 months. I didn't actually start my channel until early 2018, I guess, in earnest. I was, of course, paying attention to Bitcoin and the entire crypto market cap in the end of 2017, and I got better exposure to these assets. Thankfully, at a cost basis that I'm still very happy with in 2017. So I wasn't like late or anything, but I still think that I was late because I had heard about it years before, like we all did, right?
I
Like
heard about it in
somewhere,
2013. I was like, I'm not buying EverQuest swords. Like, I don't need
right,
Bitcoins. That was it was like,
right,
with virtual money, what's the point of that? That's silly. I didn't know the
right,
technology or anything else about it. So yeah, I
right.
believe me, I think a lot of us are kicking our own asses for missing the boat on 2013.
Big time. Well, for me, I was an enthusiast PC builder, and I was a tech trainer for a couple of Fortune 50 clients. Like I was like, very deep in tech every single day. Always had hands on some kind of high tech thing, whether it was microelectronics that were in consumer devices like phones or smartwatches, or or PCs or laptops. Like I mean, I touched tens of thousands of dollars of tech every single day. So like looking back at it, I'm like, man, I could have absolutely gotten like display units from like because of what I did for work across like 50 different Best Buy stores. I could have gotten display units mining Bitcoin for me at the time or Ethereum for me at the time, and I just didn't take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, water under the bridge, right? But so you get to this point of no return, and you're doing so well in terms of now at this point generating the content from having moved away from just doing well with your picks. Your portfolio is doing great. You got interested parties and trying to fund you, like you mentioned, to invest. You say, nah, the content is what I'm interested in. And you have groups that are actively paying you to cover their stuff. What would you consider if you had to isolate it to a few really big milestones for you and really big wins? What do you feel like were the biggest wins that signaled to you that like, okay, I already hit the point in a return. Now I know I'm on the right path, because there are always these diverging forks in the road. What were some of those milestones to let you know, like, all right, I'm really onto something now?
Man, that's a tougher question to answer because I question that every day. I mean, I do, because even though I'm big into the crypto space, and I have been now for what feels like an eternity. I feel like you can almost measure like the crypto arena in like celebrity years, because of all of the things that happen. Like every cycle, it's just like you're either getting patted on the back and you're on this like hot dopium high of watching your portfolio triple in 24 hours and then get cut in half in an hour, and and it's just like we're just constantly getting jerked all over like we're on a roller coaster to hell, and sometimes to heaven briefly, and then it drops back down into hell, and then it's like everything that happens in between. There's a lot of learning, and the one thing that I have learned, like I even just did a video recently about my new spreadsheet that I'm working on, right? I'm going to start doing a lot of these Cardano ecosystem deep dives like I used to do back in the day on Ethereum. And the thing of it is it's not from a perspective of this I think is going to make you the most money, but it's based about this is what I think has a higher potential of lasting beyond the market cycle. Like what is going to be a safer bet, right? What is going to be less likely to like rug or like hurt you, right? And so it's based on safety, not just like, oh, this is going to 100x, because everything can 100x in the next peak, right? Like you could literally throw a dart in a bull market, especially a parabolic run, and you're probably going to profit from it. The problem is that most people don't sell. They think this is going to the moon. They're ecstatic, and they're like, and then the market peaks. Like the day when I called the market peak on Twitter, everybody flamed me, and they're like, acting like I'm like fudding the market to try and make everyone lose money so I can buy more, like just stupid silliness. And it's like, I control, $1 trillion market cap with my little Twitter account of under 50,000 people, right? So, but I question this stuff every day, and I feel like if there's anything that I've learned is that nothing is safe. Nothing. I don't care how strongly you feel about it. I don't care who's at the helm. I mean, look at Celsius Network. I've met Alex Mashinsky several times, and I thought he was one of the greatest disruptors in the banking institutions, the banking systems. I thought he was going to come through and he was going to do for, I would consider it independent banking, right? Like if we're trying to unbank ourselves and manage our own money and through DeFi generate our own yields and our own loans and all of that. And it's obviously it's a brilliant technology, and the capabilities that it offers the public is, I mean, fundamentally it's fantastic. But I didn't realize that he was doing so much shady stuff with people's money and like, taking, it was all under the premise, like you put your money in the account and they loan it. And, the loans are backed up by all this collateral, and, you're getting 80% of the interest that they're paying into the system for the loan. And it's just like a win-win for everybody. Why did it have to get all crazy on the back end? Well, because they were trying to attract more and more users with these insanely high yield investments. If you put your, whatever coin, you're going to get 31% yield. Well, how are they generating that in loans? Because nobody's taking their XRP and throwing it on Celsius Network to make 31% interest, and nobody's borrowing that. You know what I mean? If anybody's doing borrowing, it's going to be like Bitcoin or something more substantial. So, and it just obviously that all went downhill. And I learned from that it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, how great you think that this leader is of this particular project, how sound the idea or the use case. Nothing is safe in the world of crypto, because I feel like, there's just it's just like a dark web, man. It really is to me. And I feel like, like even in my metrics, the longer a project exists, especially through, a down cycle or a bear market and rises again, you get more points for that. Did you survive that? You're still building, you're still developing, you're still around. You didn't rug, you didn't get hacked. Your team's still together. You've got more points in my system, And so, yeah, man, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with things. I look at everything like a scam anymore. I feel like I've become Tone Base. He's like the biggest perma bear of all time, and like, oh, everything's a scam. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? But it's like, I get it now.
It's a question of dates, right? Yeah. I mean, he could be totally wrong on the face of it the day he says it, but yeah, within 6 months, the likelihood of him being right just goes up and up, right?
Right.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So okay, so we're in a post 2 cycle sort of perma bear crow era, right? This is your character arc right now. You're turning into the perma bear.
I'm not a perma bear. I'm just very, very cynical of everything at this point. Like things have to really prove themselves to me, and then I'm bullish. Like Cardano has proven itself to me, which is why I've become like, King Cardano. It's like I've been with Cardano since the white paper came out practically, and against all the FUD and all of the VCs that are campaigning against it, because it doesn't have the Ponzonomics they know and love. It doesn't have all of the stuff associated with turning a quick buck overnight and dumping your profits, dumping everything on the heads of a bunch of people because the majority is controlled or held by a bunch of big rich people, you know what I mean, that are just playing the field. It just doesn't have all of that crap. And it's just proven that it's reached every milestone so far. It's done everything it said it was going to do and more. And its adoption is continuing to grow. And it's like, that is what I need to see. I don't even care about Charles. You can take Charles out of the equation entirely. He's like a mouthpiece for Cardano. And I know that he's leading it, right? He's the founder and all that. And I don't mean to disrespect Charles, but without Charles, Cardano is still Cardano. It doesn't matter if Charles goes live on an AMA talking about hunting in Montana. I don't give a shit. I care about the decentralized nature of the blockchain, its interoperability, its scalability, its throughput, its smart contract functionality. I care about the things that are necessary to build a global blockchain from which other people can build on. And it's just one of the few blockchains that, in my opinion, has really proven itself and continues to prove itself thoroughly. And of course, Charles is to credit with a lot of that. And so a lot of these like
Yeah,
layer twos and apps and
let me just I'm gonna push back just a little bit here. I think some people claim that with Cardano, and we'll move on to other points here in just a second. Some people claim that Cardano, that one of the biggest reasons for its success is because there is something of a cult of Charles, right? A cult of Charles Hoskinson, and that he does have a bit of a cult following, even if it isn't meant to be like a cult in the same way that, say, like, you know, Vitalik forms the cult of Ethereum in a lot of ways, right? People really like worship Vitalik, and in some cases that's why they're interested in Ethereum. And there's definitely a cult of Satoshi for sure surrounding Bitcoin with current small block maximalists, and you know, certain narratives they really center around the cult of this almost mythical figure. And Charles has been placed in this position, maybe even thrust into this position, where he needs to play a role, he needs to play a part of something of a cult leader. So, I mean, I'm not so convinced that they're completely inseparable, but I hear what you're saying as far as milestones being hit, and there being like a downgrading of risk in the Cardano ecosystem. But I don't know, man. You actually think that Charles Hoskinson could totally step away from Cardano and there would be no repercussions?
I think at this point he could, yeah. I think early on, obviously at its inception, and prior to all of the different elements that make up Cardano, being able to attach the project to a face and a voice and a mind, it does build that cult mentality. It does enable people. It's the same with like Alex and Celsius or Richard Harden Hex, and you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
and it's like I see these people, and yeah, they are the icons for the blockchain's early adoption. But when you're building something like Cardano, you know, Cardano is not going to rise and fall if Charles gets attacked by an eagle and carried off into the heavens, right? It's just not gonna. It's like and it's designed specifically for that. Its governance protocols are specifically to enable the growth and development of the blockchain without him. You know, he said it himself. This isn't about me, right? And I think that, yes, you know, it's like what happens with like a religion, right? People joke and they call Cardano a church or a religion. Well, you have your Jesus and you create your disciples, you know, and then when Jesus is gone, your disciples carry that message throughout the rest of the world, right? And that's ultimately what's happening here. I am a priest of Cardano. I jokingly say, I even put out a video where I've like got the little collar and everything. I'm like, apparently I'm a priest of this Cardano church. But yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what it is, because back in the day, man, there was nobody else talking about Cardano. Everybody was talking about Ethereum, and everybody was dumping on Cardano. It's a ghost chain, it's vaporware, it's this, it's that, it's this and another thing. And so people were missing that boat. And now every YouTuber out there is talking Cardano now. Like everybody. One, because of the quality of the blockchain, but two, because of the community that's grown out of its, you know, milestones, its development cycles, and so forth. Right. So YouTubers know if I talk about Cardano, I'm going to get a few more views out of it. Right. And then they start thinking this might be pretty good. I might actually learn something about this blockchain. And then they become believers. Right. Then they're like, there really is something to this tech. And there really is something being built here that I think is special. And then that Cardano content starts to, you know, creep up and push a lot of the other garbage out that they're used to talking about. And so now we have a whole bunch of disciples for the Church of Cardano, just spreading the word and you know, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, it ain't much, but it's honest work, right? That's awesome,
That's right.
man. So on that note, let's talk a little bit about. So you mentioned Cardano. There are people who they saw the vision in maybe the way that you did. They stuck with it. They saw there were early opportunities to build, which I think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You are one of the earliest sort of creators / builders in the space. You might be one of only a few that is a creator / builder
You like
in the Cardano
YouTubers?
ecosystem. Yeah,
I think Ivan on Tech is probably one. I mean, not on Cardano. I don't even know if he likes Cardano, but I think as far as like YouTubers that are like trying to build in the space, I think Ivan on Tech was definitely probably one of the first, if I'm not mistaken. You know, I'm building different stuff on Cardano I've been working on for years. You know what I mean? I mean, my social media platform is one of them. You know, I'm working on a game. I've actually got another project coming that nobody knows anything about yet. We'll just say a company's letting me use their IP to like create a whole thing Yeah, and it's going to be crazy.
So early alpha here on MineYourBiz. Is there any other details you can spill? A date, maybe? Should we have some dry powder ready in the wallet?
It will kick your socks off. That's probably not a good. But I will say that it involves martial arts and a big brand.
Nice.
You know, I was shocked that they're going to let me do this, but like, you know, I'll come out with everything once I have stuff to show people and everything's like done. Yeah, I think that the way what I want to do and the way it's going to work out, I think is going to be pretty daggone cool. And they already have some stuff built on another blockchain, but they're going to let me do it on whatever blockchain I want. So of course it's coming to Cardano, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. So, you know, we'll see.
Okay. Amazing. I think, yeah, the MineYourBiz audience is probably kind of aware. That's enough of a hint that if they didn't figure it out, like, I can't help them, right? You were you gave as many clues as I think is prudent. So that's amazing. So you're continuing to build, you're getting new partnerships, and they're growing all the time, apparently. Let's talk a little bit about current project. I've got it open on this other screen here called Crow Tokens.
Yeah.
What is this all about? What are you working on here? What are you building here?
I mean, there's so much to this. I consider this my legacy coin, my legacy token. Like, I call it the best shit coin on Cardano, right? And it's basically like in the blog, there's an article there that I wrote, and it's called "I Will Live Forever Through You," and it's long and it's very tear jerky. I have to scroll down a little bit, but it's long, and it goes into the story of my uncle and just kind of how I got started into the crypto space and why I started my channel and all of that fun stuff. And ultimately, I've had for years and years, people like, Crow, when are you going to come out with a coin? You got to have your own coin, this and that. And I just never felt right about it. Right. And so we did this big fair launch of the Crow token, where I basically created these tokens. I gave away like 2 point something billion of them to people from my channel and just people that have supported me, subscribed to things, commented on stuff, just to get some out there for free to everyone. And then then I donated the rest to a protocol on ViFi, and I donated another 10,000 Cardano to a liquidity pool that's locked for 100 years. And I said, okay, everybody, here's the Crow token. It's worthless. It does nothing. It's not, it's nothing, right? I don't want anybody to think that I launched this like, oh, this is going to be $1 billion meme coin. No, that's not the point of it. But I am from the school of, I like to try and under promise, over deliver. And I plan to surprise people with new fun things related to these Crow tokens over time. And I've already, like the Excel thing that I just did, like if you hold Crow tokens, you're going to get access to the Excel, that it's going to be a living document of all of my work and deep dives and everything else. But I've got stuff planned with Cornucopias as it launches, and we get closer to that. We're going to be doing live streaming events in my dome, and you're going to be able to use Crow tokens for that. There's a lot of different stuff that I have planned and more. But ultimately, it's like my legacy. It's like people that I've helped through the years with just what I do on YouTube. They wanted to have something of me, and like that made me think, like, this is a legacy token. Like, they're out there. I don't control any of them. Like, I mean, I bought some after we went public, said, hey, the launch, people were getting them before I did. It jacked up the price on me. I had my Cardano ready to try and buy some back after the protocol had kicked off and everything. And I got like half of what I thought I was going to be able to. And I'm like, damn it. So I was only able, I bought like 20 billion back out of like the 100 billion or whatever it was, 120 billion. So yeah, man, I mean, it's just kind of a fun thing that lets people attach themselves to like me and my legacy and my story, and join in on the ride, and like whatever happens. And there's a group, and people talk about what's happened, and they try to help each other and promote things. And I don't know, man. You know, like there's a lot more to it, but it's too much to get into briefly. And there's definitely a lot of plans that I have for this thing over time.
Got it. Okay. But it sounds like the fair launch distribution is done. That phase is, I mean, you feel good about the way you launched and the way you started it, which is a big deal in crypto, right? How things start.
Yeah.
So that's all done right. And you have all the flexibility in the world.
I basically gave it all away and then bought some of it back. Like, I don't know how much more fair you can get. Like, I don't control any of this anymore. The liquidity pool's locked for 100 years. I can't pull it out. I can't rug on anybody. I can't, you know what I'm saying? It's as fair as I think you could get. So yeah, it wasn't about money. None of this is really about money. It's just like, now you can join me. People that have been bugging me for years, now you can be a part of it with me.
That's super cool. So the name of the post also seems pretty significant. We had a chat in Miami recently when we were at an event together, and we just had some downtime after hours where we talked about life stuff. We talked about, you know, personal backgrounds, spiritual versus religious beliefs, indoctrination, dogma. We actually, I think it was a pretty deep dive actually.
Yeah,
we had.
It was a great
in that
talk.
conversation. Yeah, and I really appreciate that. It's really stuck with me. So so I really appreciate you investing that time with me. And I noticed that the name of this, though, I will live forever through you. Mm-hmm. It's I know some people would think like, oh, that's an interesting, that's quaint, but clearly it's actually really deep when you talk about having these conversations where you leave a piece of yourself with somebody else, even if it isn't family, like. I caught a glimpse of that again during that conversation. And in that conversation, we talked a little bit about background. I don't know if this is going to be okay to chat about, here in this convo. I don't know if you want to go here, but I discovered something about you that I don't think many people know. And that is that you're actually quite well read when it comes to not just like the tech and nerd stuff. And like you said, these other things, but when it comes to say like world religions and belief systems, and when it comes to your own beliefs, you've cultivated quite a history, right? And like you mentioned before, the word legacy, you've got your own legacy of going through and discovering things about yourself and discovering things about ancient texts. And
I was almost a
religions.
priest at one point. So
yeah,
like, you people look at me all tatted up now and they're like, what? But yeah, I mean, I've gone through a lot of life exploration, and I read constantly. I mean, generally anything I'm doing, I at least have an audio book in my ear the whole time. So like my Audible account is ridiculous. You know, and I do have a weird. Did you ever see the movie Conspiracy Theory, where every time Mel Gibson went somewhere, he had to go and get a copy
to buy Catcher in the Rye?
Right. I'm like that. Anytime I'm anywhere where there's a bookstore, I have to go in and buy shit. Or Amazon. I have so many books I have never even opened. And because I'm just like, there's going to be a day that's going to be more interesting and more like I'm going to have the time to invest in consuming it. And I want to make sure that I have it readily available. Like I'm really weird about books and knowledge and information and just learning different perspectives and like nothing's taboo to me. Like nothing, you know, like I joke all the time about my liberal friend George. Like we have completely polar opposite opinions on everything, but I love to debate with him every day. I like his perspective on things. I might think he's a little cuckoo, but it's like, you know, that's how, but he can challenge me in my own perception of things based off of how out to lunch he is.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
But no, I'm kidding. I'm poking fun. But yeah, I do. I have an interest in just about everything.
Okay, awesome. And there's probably not time to go into the deep dive on this in this segment. Maybe we can do this another time. But I'm just I would love at some point to unpack the concepts of rites, rituals, symbols, and signs, right? Within religious texts and within religion. Is it commonly known that you have aligned yourself with a group since you left the Catholic Church, or since you chose not to?
Oh, you're talking about the Freemasons. Okay, I see where this is going.
I kind of talked around it.
I've talked openly about it. I mean, I became a Mason in my early 20s. I think I might have, was I 21? I think maybe 22. And I was actually raised at the Grand Lodge of Indianapolis. And you know, I'm open about, like, I get people coming up because I have the square and compass tattooed on my calf. Like, it's not a secret to anyone. And my wife always gives me a hard time anytime somebody comes up to me and shakes my hand and calls me brother and this and that. She's like, is she in your boys club? You know, and then, like, and it's like, you know, the thing of it is, and I think that a lot of people don't really realize that, you know, when I did become a Mason, it wasn't like it was out of pure interest in like pushing myself to learn some of the more esoteric and more, you know, a lot of people that, oh, it's a secret society and you're like trying to take over the world and all this. I'm like, you know what, maybe the like 50-year pins that are up at the top, you know, maybe they have the power to do some of that, but it doesn't matter what organization, whether it's a corporation, a church, it doesn't matter, a newspaper, anybody with like tenure and power within that organization can use their power for whatever the case may be, right? Based off of their connections, their relationships, their all of that. So it doesn't matter. And there are always going to be bad apples in any group. And if you talk about an international group of men who get together and like basically have fish fries and talk about any kind of crazy thing that's entertaining at the time, you know, you can paint that in any light. But yeah, like I haven't even been active in so long, and it's like I was gonna actually get active again here in Florida, but it's like, you know, people in Florida just don't do anything. Like, I don't, it's almost like, it's like everybody, it's so weird. Like, the people in Florida are it's it's not like Puerto Rico was. Like, Puerto Rico, somebody like, yes, I'm ready to work, I'll be there at 3:00, and then you won't hear from them for a week, and they'll call you acting like you're the problem. Like, it's weird. But yeah, like Florida, it's like you can send emails and phone calls or whatever, and just nobody seems to care. It's like I'd have to show up at the front door, you know, and like, let me in. I don't know what is, but I think about getting active again, not necessarily because I'm trying to take over the world or anything. I think a lot of that stuff is funny, but just to be around people that I know kind of think, not necessarily think like me, but they're open-minded. Many people are business-oriented, open-minded individuals willing to share, you know, whatever their experience is. And I think that's the allure. And a lot of the mysticism, you know, some people they read about Freemasonry and they're like, oh, this looks really satanic. And it's like, really though, like, is it any more satanic than going to Target for a pair of underwear anymore? Like, what? I mean, let's just be real. Like, they're not putting Satan on t-shirts, you know? So, yeah, man, I don't know. I don't want to get you canceled, or get your video shut down. But like, it's just like, I feel like there, within any group, there are people that have different agendas and different motives, but it doesn't like paint the picture for everyone, you know? So,
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing, especially for anybody that's wanting to kind of grow, you know, as a man, through charity, through like whatever their interests are. They're gonna be around people that they can share those interests with, and I think that's ultimately what it's about.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So it's funny. I can't think about Freemasonry without thinking of the old Sean Connery movie, The Man Who Would Be King. Sean Connery and Michael King, right? If you haven't seen it, maybe movie worth seeing. But
I don't think I've seen that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we got homework. I think you promised me that if I hadn't seen at least some episodes of gosh, what show is it? Game of Thrones, that we weren't gonna hang out in person, you know, again. So I got to get on that, but I'm going to make the recommendation back at you that you watch the movie The Man Who Would Be King. It's actually quite long. It's like 3.5 hours long.
Oh, I love long
4
movies.
hours long. But dude, and it's Sean Connery and Michael King. Like, how bad could it be, right?
The Man Who Would Be King.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so
I'm on it.
This is one, yeah, they're both young, but there's a through line in this film.
Well, Sean Connery was a 33rd degree Mason, so
I didn't know that about him.
You didn't know that?
I had no idea. No,
yeah,
but here's the thing.
For one, he's Scottish, and I'm 33rd degree went up the Scottish rite. So, yeah, I mean, okay. A lot of presidents are Masons. I don't even think you can be a judge in the UK unless you're a Mason. A lot of police officers are Masons. It's like, you know, yeah. I mean, George Washington was a Mason.
Got it. Yeah. See, I was aware that there were a lot of high profile people that were, and I mean, I think we discussed it also that I've got extended family who are Freemasons, and so it was destigmatized for me at a certain point where they were like, oh yeah, come by. I had a cousin that was married in a local lodge, right? And so
my wife and I got married at a lodge. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. So I had a chance to see it, and yeah, there weren't like whatever secret, hidey holes under the floorboards, whatever, where the skeletons were hidden. Like I didn't find any of that with my own eyes anyway. So
yeah, all the bones of everyone that talked before. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's a little crawl space where they're like, hey, so this is where we do our meditation. You want to meditate whether or not you want to betray us. You don't? Good. So, destigmatized for me, but I want to just ask about that because I would love to just on a separate time, just if the audience is feeling it too, maybe do a follow-up where we just discuss some of this more esoteric stuff, because I do think that there's a pretty strong crossover between the things that we choose to align ourselves with and some of those beliefs, right? Like even just this choice to call this blog post, I will live forever through you. Now, I haven't read the whole thing. Maybe it's a quote. Maybe this is even more deeply personal, but to me, it seems like this comes from the mind of somebody who's explored more about mysticism and about like the practicality of not going fully into mysticism or just looking to divinity, but also exploring more about humanity and the human condition.
Honestly, what it really boils down to is that the tokens are going to live forever. They're going to be out there in the world forever. And like, and I'm not going to pretend to make them like super deep, but the truth is that I know that I have changed a lot of lives over the years, and I've been brutally honest every step of the way. I maintain my integrity. I turned down, hundreds of thousands of dollars in projects like gambling, XXX related projects on the blockchain, stuff like that. I've turned down a lot of money just because, like, I don't have any problem with any of those things, but I just didn't feel like those were things I wanted to promote or even talk about on my channel, right? And be paid to do it. It just felt dirty somehow, so I just never did it. And I've always been very upfront with everyone, and it's like, I always said that, like, even in high school, like, I'm never going to sell my soul for $1, right? And I think that is a part of my legacy. Like, and as I continue to push forward and I try to do the best that I can to educate myself and educate the people that are watching my channel, and we're kind of in this together, that like the crow tokens or that things like 100 years from now, maybe somebody has some of my old shit coins and they're like, what are these? Like you find pennies in a couch and you're like, oh, look at this is an old wheat penny. Like, oh, what does this mean? And it's like, oh, well, there's this old guy on the interwebs back in the day and taught your great grandfather like how to invest in all of this stuff back before it was all virtual, and who knows, what I mean? But it's just like, and maybe I'm people will forget about me no matter what within like 10 years of me not being on YouTube, I'm sure, but those videos are likely always going to remain, and those tokens are always going to be out there. And like at some point I want to have my website minted to the blockchain as well, and make sure that there are ways to access anything I say or do on it, so that when those tokens are circulating in the world and they pull you back to the website, people can get a real feel for, this is who the man was that created these, and these are the purposes of them, and hopefully they can be used to like benefit other people, or at least draw people in to share that same message. That's really what it boils down to.
Got it. Okay, so there's nothing even remotely connected to anything else. It's literally just the impermanent, or the sort of like the permanent storage aspect and the permanent reference aspect of blockchain and these tokens.
Much. Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So it would give you a good excuse to talk to you about Freemasonry anyway. So
yeah, well, anytime, man, anytime.
Cool. So appreciate you making time. On that note, we've gone a little bit longer than I mentioned that I was going to ask of you from your time. Really briefly, what is the best place for people to go to learn or do or interact with you? And then what should they do when they get there?
I mean, my YouTube channel is the best way to get to know me, really. And I am going to be posting more and more articles on crowtokens.com, like I said, because that's just that's where I'm going to start sharing a lot of my perception on things. I've got a big breakdown article that I've already got it outlined, but it's basically like every political view I have, like everything I think about everything is just going to be broken down into one thing. And it's going to probably take forever to finish, but it's just one of those things that I want everybody to know. This is who I was at this time. This is who this man is. This is what these tokens are about, who they represent, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's it. I mean, I have a Discord group and all of those links are all over. I mean, I have multiple websites, but ultimately I'm probably just going to redirect all of them to Crow tokens. And like cryptocrow.io. I mean, that's been up for a while with a lot of different links for a lot of different stuff that I do. But, I'm probably going to merge a lot of this content, a lot of these different sites under one domain name instead of breaking it all apart. So, but yeah,
okay.
I'm easy to find.
Great. Okay. In that case, then, audience, if you haven't already, check the links that you see on the description. Jason, I really appreciate your time, man. And I know you got a ton of stuff to do this weekend with the move, but in the meantime, wish you Godspeed on learning Unreal Engine and who knows, grinding out maybe some really fun tests from your initial exploration there. Yeah, just really means a lot. And yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next out of Crow tokens and the whole ecosystem that you've been building. Definitely for me, been a pleasure getting to know you IRL and then like this. So yeah, obviously, here. Yeah. Obviously, you don't need to hear encouragement from me. Like you're plowing ahead because of that basically endless curiosity that you have for the world, but especially the world of crypto and building in it. So yeah, excited to see what you build next and really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being on MineYourBiz.
Yeah, thanks, Seth. Always a pleasure, man. You're one of the real ones too. Everybody needs to know that. I don't sit around talking to everybody for hours about random stuff. So yeah, man, it's been a pleasure, and I'm more than happy to come on anytime.
Thanks, man.